The bitter arrangement, Dahlia Reeves stared at the stack of unpaid medical bills on her kitchen table, the red final notice stamps blurring as tears threatened to spill. 3 jobs and still not enough. Her father's heart medication alone cost more than her rent, and the experimental treatment that might save him remained impossibly out of reach. There has to be another way, she whispered to herself, rubbing her temples where a headache had taken permanent residence. The knock on her apartment door came at exactly 7 o'clock. Her Uncle Theodore stood there, his expression a mixture of relief and guilt. "I found a solution," he said, not bothering with pleasantries. In his hand, he clutched a business card emblazoned with Whitley and Associates. Dahlia recognized the name immediately. Whitley, the prestigious law firm that had represented Revacorp when they'd stolen her father's architectural designs and left him with nothing but a shattered reputation and a broken heart. "No," she said, already turning away. "Whatever it is, absolutely not." "Dahlia, please." Uncle Theodore stepped inside, uninvited. "Marcus Whitley needs a wife. It's a contract marriage 1 year. He's willing to pay for all of Dad's medical expenses, plus enough to get you through your final year at university." She laughed bitterly. And why would Marcus Whitley, heir to one of the most powerful law firms in the city, need a fake wife? Especially me? Immigration issues. His grandmother left conditions in her will. He needs to be married to receive his inheritance. It's complicated. And what does he get from choosing me specifically? The daughter of the man his firm helped destroy? The irony was almost too cruel to bear. Her uncle looked away. "I saved his father's life years ago. He owes me a favor." 2 days later, Dahlia found herself sitting in the sterile conference room of Whitley and Associates, facing the man she'd vilified in her mind for years. Marcus Whitley was younger than she'd expected, perhaps only a few years older than her 26 years. His dark hair was precisely cut, his steel-gray suit impeccable, but it was his eyes that surprised her most. They weren't cold or calculating, just tired. "Ms. Reeves," he said, his voice surprisingly soft. "I understand this is an unusual arrangement." "Unusual?" she echoed. "It's absurd. You destroyed my family, and now you want me to pretend to be your loving wife?" A flicker of something, confusion, crossed his face before his professional mask returned. "I assure you this is strictly business. The contract lasts exactly 12 months. We'll appear together at necessary functions. You'll live in my house, separate rooms, of course. Your father will receive the best medical care, and your tuition will be paid in full." He slid the contract across the table, along with a pen that probably cost more than her monthly salary. "And what are the rules?" Dahlia asked, not touching the pen. "Simple. Discretion, convincing public appearances. And most importantly," his eyes met hers directly, "don't fall for me. This means nothing. Once the contract ends, we go our separate ways." Dahlia almost laughed. "Trust me, that won't be a problem." She signed her name with a shaking hand, feeling like she'd made a deal with the devil. But for her father, she'd dance with demons if necessary. As they left the office, photographers were waiting outside. Marcus placed his hand gently but firmly at the small of her back, a possessive gesture for show. "Smile," he murmured near her ear. "Our story begins now." In the flashing lights, Dahlia pasted on her best fake smile, even as she silently promised herself that no matter what happened in the next 12 months, her heart would remain firmly locked away from Marcus Whitley and the gilded cage he'd just placed her in. Cold foundations. The Whitley mansion sprawled across 3 acres of manicured lawns and gardens, its stone facade as imposing as its owner. Dahlia stood in her new bedroom, larger than her entire apartment, surrounded by emptiness that somehow matched the hollow feeling in her chest. "Your things will arrive tomorrow," Marcus said from the doorway, not quite entering her space. "Feel free to redecorate." Dahlia ran her fingers over the pristine duvet. "This is fine. The housekeeper, Mrs. Patterson, comes Monday through Friday. Chef Ronaldo prepares dinner at 7. I'm usually not home until 8. He spoke as if reciting from a manual. "Your father's transfer to Westlake Medical Center is scheduled for tomorrow morning. Dr. Jameson is the best cardiologist in the state." "Thank you," she said stiffly. the words tasting foreign on her tongue. Marcus nodded, retreating. "We have the Whitley Foundation Gala on Saturday. My assistant will coordinate your wardrobe and preparation." The week passed in a blur of awkward silences and parallel lives. They orbited each other like distant planets, sharing a roof but little else. Dahlia spent her days at the hospital with her father, marveling at the private room and team of specialists now attending to him. James Reeves looked better already, his color returning, though his suspicious glances at Dahlia spoke volumes. "You don't love him," her father stated one afternoon. "Not a question. It's complicated, Dad." The lie stuck in her throat. Nothing about love should be complicated. Daisy. He used her childhood nickname, making her heart ache. "I didn't raise you to sell yourself, not even for me." "I haven't sold anything," she insisted, arranging his pillows. "It's a partnership. Temporary." Her father's knowing eyes saw too much. The truth always surfaces, one way or another. Saturday night arrived with uncomfortable speed. Dahlia stood before her bedroom mirror, barely recognizing herself in the midnight blue gown that hugged her curves before cascading to the floor. The stylist had transformed her usually wild curls into an elegant updo, accentuated by sapphire earrings Marcus had left in a velvet box. "For appearances," his note had clarified. When she descended the grand staircase, Marcus was waiting in the foyer. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes, appreciation, perhaps, before he schooled his features back to polite indifference. "You look appropriate," he offered. "Such high praise," she replied dryly. The ride to the gala was silent until Marcus suddenly spoke. "There will be people there who knew your father professionally," Dahlia tensed. And they may say things, make assumptions about our relationship given the history." He stared out the window, profile sharp in the passing streetlights. "Just follow my lead." The ballroom glittered with wealth and power. Dahlia clung to Marcus's arm, feeling like an imposter as they weaved through the crowd. His transformation amazed her. Gone was the distant man from the mansion, replaced by a charming host who introduced her as "my wife" with practiced ease. Marcus, a portly man with ruddy cheeks, approached. "Finally decided to settle down, eh? And with James Reeves's daughter, no less. Quite the plot twist." Dahlia felt Marcus's arm tighten around her waist. "Richard," Marcus acknowledged coolly. "I believe you know my wife, Dahlia," Richard smirked. "Indeed, though I'm surprised, given what happened with Riva Corp. Your firm did quite a number on her father's company." Before she could respond, Marcus cut in smoothly. "Actually, I've always admired James Reeves's architectural vision. What happened with Riva Corp was regrettable. Corporate interests sometimes overshadow justice." Dahlia glanced up at him, genuinely surprised. Later, as they danced, Marcus leading with unexpected grace, she found the courage to ask, "Did you mean what you said about my father's work?" Something unreadable passed across his face. "I don't say things I don't mean, Dahlia. But my firm represents clients. That doesn't mean I personally agree with every case." His hand at her waist guided her through a turn. "Your father was talented. What happened wasn't fair." For the first time, Dahlia looked at her contractual husband and wondered if perhaps there was more to Marcus Whitley than she had allowed herself to see. That night, she lay awake in her too-large bed, turning his words over in her mind. Outside her window, she noticed a light still burning in Marcus's study. At 3 a.m, she watched his silhouette finally leave the room, shoulders slumped with a weariness she hadn't noticed before. Winter settled over the city, and with it came a subtle thaw in the frozen landscape of their arrangement. Small changes, a cup of coffee waiting for her in the morning, prepared exactly how she liked it. Books on architecture appearing on her nightstand without comment. Marcus occasionally joining her for dinner, their conversation still limited but less strained. One evening, Dahlia returned from the hospital to find Marcus in the kitchen, a first awkwardly attempting to cook. "Mrs. Patterson and Chef Ronaldo are both out sick," he explained, looking slightly panicked as something smoked ominously on the stove. Dahlia bit back a smile and moved to rescue the burning pan. You don't cook much, do you? Is it that obvious? A self-deprecating smile transformed his usually serious face. That night, they ate slightly overdone pasta at the kitchen island rather than the formal dining room, and Marcus told her about his first disastrous case as a junior lawyer. Dahlia found herself laughing genuinely for the first time in months. As she went to bed that night, Dahlia realized with alarm that the walls she'd built against Marcus Whitley were beginning to show dangerous cracks. Racks in the facade January brought record snowfall and unexpected revelations. Dahlia was preparing for her final semester, spreading textbooks across the library table, when she heard raised voices from Marcus's study. Curiosity drew her to the partially open door. "Can't keep covering for him, Bennett." Marcus's voice carried the rare edge of genuine anger. "He's your father, Marcus." A voice she didn't recognize responded. "The firm bears his name, and that gives him the right to sabotage our clients? To override my settlements behind my back?" Something crashed. Marcus wasn't usually one to lose control. He pushed that RivaCorp case to trial when I had a fair settlement arranged. He knew what would happen to Reeves. Dahlia froze. Her breath caught in her throat. "Your father has his methods. His methods are destroying people. And now he's doing it again with the Wellington case." Dahlia retreated silently, mind racing. Marcus had tried to settle her father's case? This contradicted everything she'd believed for years. That evening, a blizzard trapped them both at home. Dahlia found Marcus in the library, nursing a glass of whiskey and staring into the fireplace. For once, his perfect facade had slipped. Tie loosened, hair slightly disheveled. "Rough day?" she ventured, pouring herself a glass of wine. He glanced up, surprised by her presence or her interest. Perhaps both. "Nothing unusual. I heard you earlier." "With Bennett." The admission hung between them. Marcus stiffened. "How much did you hear?" "Enough to wonder if I've misjudged you." She sat across from him. "You tried to settle my father's case?" The silence stretched so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Finally, he sighed. "Yes, your father deserved better. I had a fair agreement. RivaCorp would license his designs, provide proper credit and compensation." He swirled the amber liquid in his glass. "My father torpedoed it. He wanted the win, not the right outcome. Why didn't you tell me this before? Would you have believed me?" His smile held no humor. "Besides, it changes nothing. The outcome was the same." Dahlia studied him in the firelight, seeing new lines of strain around his eyes. "It changes how I see you." Something vulnerable flashed across his face before he looked away. "Don't do that, Dahlia. Don't look for the good in me." "This is still just a contract, is it?" she challenged quietly. "Then why are you paying for experimental treatments my father isn't even eligible for on paper? Why did you arrange for my professors to let me complete my degree remotely?" Marcus looked genuinely startled. "How did you—" "I'm observant. And contrary to what you might think, I'm not stupid." "I never thought you were stupid," he said softly. Quite the opposite. The blizzard howled outside as something shifted between them. Delicate as a snowflake and just as likely to melt under too much scrutiny. The next morning, Dahlia found Marcus shoveling the driveway himself instead of waiting for the ground staff to arrive. "You know we have people for that," she called, bringing him a steaming mug of coffee. He accepted it gratefully, snowflakes clinging to his dark eyelashes. "I like the physical work. Clears my head." "From what?" Marcus paused, leaning on the shovel. "My father is pushing to take the Wellington case to trial. They'll lose everything just like your father did. And you're fighting him on it." "Trying to." He looked weary beyond his years. "The firm has my name, but my father still controls the board." Dahlia studied him, this man who bore the weight of his family legacy like a cross. "What can I do?" Surprise registered on his face. "Why would you want to help?" "Because maybe I've been fighting the wrong villain in this story." That afternoon, they worked side by side in his study, Dahlia's organizational skills complementing Marcus's legal knowledge as they built a case to present to the board. When Mrs. Patterson found them at midnight, papers spread across every surface and empty coffee cups littering the desk. They were laughing over some absurd legal precedent Marcus had uncovered. February brought her father home to the guest house on Marcus's property. his condition stable enough for outpatient care. Dahlia watched with growing confusion as Marcus visited him daily, often spending hours discussing architecture and gradually restoring her father's confidence. "He's not what you described," her father told her one evening as she tucked him in. "I'm beginning to realize that," she admitted. "The question is, Daisy," her father's eyes were knowing, "are you falling for the man who's more than your contract?" Dahlia had no answer. But that night, as she passed Marcus's study and saw him asleep at his desk, she gently draped a blanket over his shoulders. Her hand lingered on his back, feeling his steady breathing, and she acknowledged the truth she'd been avoiding. The walls around her heart had developed serious structural flaws, and Marcus Whitley was walking right through them. Hidden truths. Revealed March wines brought change and confrontation. Dahlia returned from class to find Marcus's father, Lawrence Whitley, standing in their foyer. She'd never met him, but recognized him instantly from photographs. Marcus in 30 years, but with colder eyes. "So you're the gold digger who trapped my son," he said without preamble. Dahlia's spine straightened. "And you're the man who destroyed my father's life for a courtroom win. I suppose neither of us is making a good first impression." Lawrence's eyebrows rose slightly. Spirited. "I'll give you that." He circled her like a predator. "What's your endgame here? The Whitley fortune? Revenge? You wouldn't believe me if I told you the truth. Try me." "It's a business arrangement," she said evenly. "One that benefits us both." Lawrence laughed, the sound devoid of humor. "Marcus doesn't make arrangements that don't ultimately serve the firm. Whatever he's told you, don't believe it." He stepped closer. "My son is a Whitley first, everything else second." "You don't know him very well, then." Something dangerous flashed in Lawrence's eyes. "I made him. Everything he is, I created." "You tried," Dahlia corrected. "But he's better than that." "Better than you." Lawrence's retort was cut short by Marcus's arrival. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees as father and son locked eyes. "I see you've met my wife," Marcus said, voice carefully neutral as he moved to stand beside Dahlia. "Charming girl. Delusional, but charming." Lawrence straightened his already immaculate tie. "The board meeting is moved up to tomorrow. Wellington is ready to settle, but I think we can push for more." "We're taking the settlement," Marcus stated flatly. "Don't be weak. We can bankrupt them and acquire their assets for pennies." Lawrence's smile was predatory. "Just like we did with Reeves." Dahlia felt Marcus tense beside her. "That's not happening again," Marcus said. "Not with my name on the firm." Lawrence's laugh was dismissive. "Your name is on the letterhead, son. That's all." After he left, the silence hung heavy between them. Dahlia turned to Marcus, seeing the conflict etched in his features. "He's wrong about you," she said quietly. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of frustration. "Is he? Everything I have comes from him, from that firm. That doesn't make you him." Dahlia touched his arm, surprised when he didn't pull away. "You've been fighting him from the inside all this time, haven't you?" Their eyes met, and for once Marcus didn't look away. Not very successfully. "Yet you keep trying," her voice softened. "That matters, Marcus." Something shifted in his expression. Vulnerability, need, she couldn't quite name it, before he abruptly stepped back. "I should prepare for tomorrow." Later that night, unable to sleep, Dahlia went to the kitchen for tea and found Marcus's office light still on. Inside, he sat surrounded by files, looking defeated. "What happened?" she asked from the doorway. He glanced up, exhaustion evident. "I've been removed as lead counsel on Wellington. My father had the votes." "I'm sorry. Don't be. It's just business as usual." His bitter laugh held no humor. "Maybe he's right. Maybe this is who the Whitleys are." Dahlia moved to his desk, boldly closing his laptop. "Come with me." She led him to the kitchen, made 2 cups of tea, and sat across from him. "Tell me the truth, Marcus." "All of it." Perhaps it was exhaustion, or maybe something had finally broken inside him, but he did. He told her how he'd joined the firm idealistic, believing he could change it from within. How he'd watched his father destroy lives for profit and corporate conquests. How he'd been secretly building his own client list, preparing to break away. Your father's case was my breaking point, he admitted. I tried to make it right afterward. The anonymous scholarship fund for your education, the donation to your father's medical care before all this, that was you? Dahlia stared, pieces falling into place. But why? Marcus met her eyes directly. Guilt. Responsibility. I should have fought harder. And our arrangement? This marriage? He looked away. Your uncle approached me, actually. He knew about my grandmother's will stipulations, but he hesitated. I could have found someone else. I chose you because I thought maybe I could finally make things right. By buying me, anger flared briefly. No! He reached for her hand, then stopped himself. By helping you and your father get back what was taken. It was never about ownership, Dahlia. It was about atonement. Dawn was breaking when they finally stopped talking. Something fundamental had shifted between them. The contract still existed, but now truth lay between them instead of assumptions. The next evening, Dahlia arrived home to find Marcus in the garden with her father. The two men hunched over architectural drawings. Her father was animated in a way she hadn't seen in years. Marcus thinks I should counter-sue RivaCorp, her father explained, eyes bright with purpose. They've been cutting corners on my designs, compromising structural integrity. He's been gathering evidence for months. Dahlia looked at Marcus in shock. You've what? Marcus shrugged, almost embarrassed. It's the right thing to do. Later, as they walked through the garden alone, Dahlia asked, Why are you really doing this? The truth, Marcus. He stopped, turning to face her fully. In the twilight, his expression was more open than she'd ever seen it. Because somewhere along the way, this stopped being about a contract for me. His voice was quiet but firm. Because I want to be the man you believe I can be, not the one my father created. And because, he took a breath, I'm breaking the most important rule of our arrangement. Dahlia's heart stuttered. Which is? Don't fall for you. His eyes held hers. Too late. The garden faded around them as 6 months of slowly building connection crystallized into something neither had expected when they signed their names to a business arrangement that had become anything but. Beyond, the signature summer bloomed across the gardens as the 1-year mark of their contract approached. Dahlia sat in the sunroom watching her father sketching at his drafting table, a gift from Marcus. James Reeves was designing again, consulting on a project for the first time since the RivaCorp disaster. The preliminary hearing for his countersuit was scheduled for next month, with Marcus's new independent firm representing him. You're going to wear a hole in that couch with all your thinking, her father observed without looking up from his work. Just enjoying the view, she deflected. Her father's knowing. Smile said he didn't believe her. Have you two decided what happens when the contract ends next week? Dahlia's stomach twisted. They hadn't discussed it, not directly. After Marcus's admission in the garden 3 months ago, they'd grown closer in countless small ways, working side by side on her father's case, sharing meals and conversations that stretched late into the night, his hand finding hers when they walked through the gardens. Once, during a thunderstorm that knocked out the power, they'd fallen asleep together on the library sofa, Dahlia waking to find herself curled against his chest, his arms protectively around her, but neither had put words to what was happening, as if speaking might break the fragile thing growing between them. We haven't talked about it, she finally admitted. Her father set down his pencil. Daisy, that man looks at you like you're the blueprint to everything he ever wanted to build, and you look at him the same way. It's complicated, Dad, only because you're both making it so. He returned to his drawing. Life's too short for complications, believe me. That evening, Dahlia found an envelope on her bed containing papers. Her heart sank as she recognized the divorce documents already signed by Marcus, awaiting only her signature to dissolve their union. A post-it note in his handwriting simply read, Your choice. She found him in his study, staring out the window at the gathering dusk. You signed the papers, she said from the doorway, holding the envelope. He turned, his expression carefully neutral. The contract term is complete. Your father's health is stable, your degree finished, his case proceeding. You're free to go. Is that what you want? She stepped closer. What I want stopped mattering the moment I realized I'd broken my own rule. His voice was rough with emotion he rarely displayed. This was never meant to be real, Dahlia. But it became real anyway, didn't it? She placed the unsigned papers on his desk. At least for me, hope flickered in his eyes before uncertainty clouded them again. I'm still a Whitley. My father is not you. Dahlia moved around the desk until she stood before him. The man I've come to know these past months is nothing like his father. He fights for what's right, even when it costs him. He listens, he cares. He brings my father architectural journals and stays up all night preparing for a case that might finally bring justice. She took his hand. That's the man I fell in love with, despite all my best efforts not to. Marcus stared at their joined hands. I don't deserve this. You, after everything my family took from yours, you're not taking anything, she interrupted. I'm giving. There's a difference. She lifted his chin until their eyes met. So I'm making a choice, Marcus. Not because of a contract or obligation or guilt. Because of us. She reached for the papers, deliberately tearing them in half. What are you doing? He asked, voice barely above a whisper. Proposing a new contract, she smiled. One without an expiration date. For the first time since she'd known him, Marcus Whitley looked completely undone. Dahlia, are you sure? Your father already considers you a son? She stepped closer. He told me so yesterday. Marcus cupped her face with trembling hands. I promised myself I wouldn't keep you if you wanted to go. And if I want to stay? The question hung between them for one heartbeat. 2, before he answered by bringing his lips to hers. The kiss held everything they'd been building toward for a year. Tentative at first, then deepening with the certainty of coming home. When they finally broke apart, Marcus pressed his forehead to hers. I love you, he whispered. Not for a year or because of a signature on a page. For as long as you'll have me. That might be a very long time, she warned, smiling against his lips. I'm counting on it. 3 months later, they stood in the same garden where Marcus had first admitted his feelings. But this time they were surrounded by friends and family, including her father, who looked healthier than he had in years as he prepared to walk her down the aisle. Dahlia's new engagement ring caught the autumn sunlight. Unlike their first ceremony, a sterile affair at City Hall, this one would celebrate a choice, not a contract. As the music began and her father offered his arm, he leaned close. I told you the truth always surfaces, he murmured. Sometimes it just takes a while to recognize it. Dahlia smiled, her eyes finding Marcus waiting for her at the altar, looking at her exactly as her father had described, like she was the blueprint to everything he'd ever wanted. The paper that had once bound them in a business arrangement was long gone. What remained was stronger, built not on signatures and obligations, but on forgiveness, understanding, and a love that had flourished in the most unlikely of circumstances. Their story wasn't about the stranger who had ruined her life, but about the man who had helped her rebuild it, and in doing so, found his own redemption.